Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and we all laughed our asses off with the YouTube classic A Day in the Life of a Literature PhD. So fun when the Bookchemist took away his coffee, a classic comic moment. But I think it's time to tell you what it is to be an actual PhD in literature, because lots of people do not know what that is about, and I guess lots of prospective PhD students too do not really know what to expect. It's a complicated world, it's a contradictory world in many ways, and also my graduate school threatened to sue me, so here you have this video. Okay, first things first. Things vary immensely according to the country you're in. One thing I've learned during my years at uni, by direct experience and by talking to people from all over the world, is that the academic system is wildly different in different countries. It's different in America than it is in Europe, and within Europe it's very different in the UK and in continental Europe. Different means different. It doesn't mean better or worse, and for instance in the Anglo-Saxon world of the humanities, lots of importance is put on discussion and on autonomous production through essays and such, whereas, for instance, in the Italian system, lots of importance, most of the importance is put on straight-up lectures. That does not mean that the Italian system is worse, it just means that they have different strengths and different flows. I'm saying this because being a PhD too is very different if you do it in Italy, in France, in the UK, in America. And for instance, within the Italian system, I've heard horror stories from people who are doing their PhD or who finished their PhD, and there is this this common belief in Italy that if you are a PhD student you have no future, but I also know several PhD students who have a bright future ahead of them and who are very content with what they're doing in Italy. So of course, if you are a PhD student wherever you're from, please share your experience in the comments, tell me about your own experience. That also means that what I'm going to tell you is going to refer mostly to the UK system, because I am a PhD student in England. Also keep in mind that I just started like a few months ago, so I'm really new to all this. Being a PhD student in literature means you'll have to produce a book-length study on a specific topic in the field. Once, it was a prerequisite of any PhD research to be original. Your thoughts had to be original to contribute to the field with new ideas. Nowadays you can still do that, but you can totally do also a kind of cataloging research, ordering and cataloging all ideas and thoughts on a specific topic. That is not at all a less noble pursuit than contributing with new ideas, because in the field of the humanities lots and lots is written every year. Some of that shouldn't be written properly, so ordering what everyone's saying about a specific topic is completely noble pursuit and completely needed. At the beginning of your PhD you will probably be already very well read in your topic of interest, both as far as primary sources and critical secondary sources are concerned, and otherwise you won't be accepted as a PhD student and you will keep reading in that field. And at the beginning of your PhD you will probably already know about how your research is going to be structured and what you're going to talk about in each chapter of your research. And what you have to do is read as widely and as deeply as possible all of the topics you're talking about, and eventually contribute with your own point of view and your own interpretation and take. That might sound dishonest, because it kinda means that at the start of your research you already know what you're going to find at the end. And of course you have to keep an open mind and to understand that your approach might change according to all the texts and sources you're going to read. But it's not a dishonest take at all. Take the hard sciences too. When people do research in the hard sciences, it's not like they just mix different atoms together or whatever. They already have a theory and they know what they are looking for when they do research. They do, don't they? But what it means to actually do a PhD, what do you have to do all day? You have to read and read a lot. And you have to read closely and study and to analyze and understand a lot of text, all of human knowledge in the specific area of literature you're interested in, which means most notably that you'll read way more secondary sources, critical texts, essays, than actual novels or poems. One thing that's very important to understand if you're going to do a PhD is that most of the time you will be reading very cryptic, very complicated secondary sources and essays on topics that apparently have sweet fuck nothing to do with the actual topic of your research, but that will be needed too, otherwise your research won't be informed. And one question I get all the time is whether being a literature PhD actually makes you hate books. No, it doesn't, but it's still a job. That's why liking to read is not enough at all if you want to be a literature PhD. Take the example of cooking. That's, to me, is a good example. Also because my dad is a cook, so I know that world. I'm sure lots of you out there know how to cook and like to cook for yourself or for your loved ones, and maybe also like to cook stuff that takes several hours and is very complicated and is very difficult, and that's awesome. But would you like to be a cook? Because being a cook means having to cook 7, 8, maybe more hours a day every day, whether you like it or not. It means spending 2 hours every morning peeling potatoes and cutting carrots. It means taking very long car trips to get all the stuff you need every fucking morning. It means having to cook the same stuff every fucking day of your fucking life. Are you prepared to do that? Because that's the kind of effort you'll have to do, of course translated to the world of literature, if you do a PhD. Does it make reading horrible? No, of course it does not, but it's still a job, and like all jobs in their way kind of suck. One of the main elements of being a PhD in literature, one of the main difficulties of the task is that you will be working alone and independently most of the time. You will have several meetings with your supervisors to keep yourself on track, but you will have to work independently. I know one of my best friends, for instance, is a PhD in biotechnology, and he has to go to a laboratory every day in the morning, and in the evening he leaves, and that's it. If you are a literature PhD, you have to structure your day independently, which like my graduate school told me that I have to spend about 7 hours a day on my research, but of course it's up to me how to do that. And some PhDs discover that they're way more productive at night, for instance. Some PhDs realize that they can get up at 1 p.m. every day and still be productive and still do some serious research. Other people like find it more difficult to adjust to this situation. I have kind of lots of experience working independently. I've been a freelance translator for these last few years, but it was still, and it is still, quite difficult for me to articulate my day around my research and to, you know, be independent in this important way. Because of course, the one thing that's not going to happen is you getting up at 1 p.m. and studying until 3 p.m. and actually doing a successful PhD. That's not like a likely scenario at all. Another very major difficulty if you're a PhD in literature is alienation. You will of course become extremely knowledgeable about a very, very selective, very, very specific topic in human literature. And that will alienate you from other people. Also because you'll need to spend so much time studying alone and independently. And that's something you have to be prepared to face, whether by like networking a lot, by making lots of friends in the uni where you're studying, or in whatever way you can. Also, one depressing fact about being a PhD is that the more you study, the more you understand how ignorant you are. When I was 18 and I read a lot, of course, like I read quite badly, but I read a lot, like 4 books a week, I believed I knew everything. I believed I was better than Harold Bloom. Now, the more I read, the more stuff I read, the more I understand I'll never amount to anything, and like the whole of world literature is an ocean, and I'll be able to control maybe a drop of that ocean in my whole life. Moreover, talking about the future, the one contradiction at the heart of any PhD is simply this. On the one hand, it is fatal and useless to start a PhD in literature for any reason but in order to get an academic position, because you want to become a university professor. It's not like you can use your PhD for anything else, and if you don't want to be a university professor, there's no real reason why you should do a PhD, unless of course you are filthy rich and you have nothing else to do and you don't feel like doing research independently. The other side of this conundrum is that of course not all PhDs out there will be able to become university professors, because there are so many brilliant PhDs out there and not enough positions for them in the academia. And nowadays, more and more people will like have to recycle in a way their PhD and do other things, and all these people get employed, make no mistake. But it's still a very competitive world, and you still have to know from the start that if your dream in life is to become a university professor, that might not happen, at least not exactly the moment you finish your PhD. If you want to optimize your chances of like getting a job in the academia, of course, getting published in academic journals, getting some experience teaching and getting some experience at conferences with call for papers, and those are all very important things. I don't yet have much experience teaching. I will maybe teach a class next year, it still has to be seen. When I corrected the essay in the other stupid video, I had to correct those, but I will confront the correction with the professor. It's not like those people will actually fail because I make them fail. And of course, teaching is a whole new challenge in itself, and it's very difficult, I think, from a PhD student to confront people, freshman students who are just at the beginning of their university career. And you know, you have to try and remember how you were back then. Finally, the great enemy of all PhDs in literature is the so-called imposter syndrome, which is a real thing and a universal thing. Being a PhD in literature, but really being a PhD in everything, means that you are so alienated and so focused on yourself that you feel like an imposter all the time, because it seems to you that your difficulties and your problems are everything there is, and that all people around you, all other PhD students, are doing just great, and that everyone is fine, everyone is successful in their field, except for you. Everyone feels that way, is completely normal, everyone is terrified, no one knows shit. That, I think, should give you a general idea of what it is to be a PhD in literature. If you're interested in these topics and in the general topic of doing research in the world of the humanities, do absolutely read How to Write a Thesis by Umberto Eco, which is a golden text full of so much insight into the world of academic research at all levels. Even if you're just writing your dissertation for your BA, you should totally check that out, because it's a golden text and it's super fun, wonderfully entertaining read, and it will be very useful for any kind of research you will be doing in your life. That's it. Do let me know if you are PhD students or research students, MPhil students, whatever the fuck, about your own experience. Let me know about the system in your specific country. I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.